let me ask you a question. If fat makes you fat, why did Americans start eating less fat in the 1980s and then proceed to get dramatically fatter? That seems inconvenient for the theory. Today, we're going to talk about one of the biggest nutrition experiments ever run on an entire population. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. Welcome back to Trust the What, the channel where we stop blindly trusting health advice that sounded good in a government report, but somehow turned half the country into a metabolic science project. You know who I am.
By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
In today's episode, we'll explore how did we get here, and more importantly, what actually happened when we followed the advice. Part 1, the rise of the low-fat diet. Let's go back to the late 1970s. Heart disease had become the #1 cause of death in America, so policymakers decided the problem must be fat. Not stress, not smoking, not processed food. Nope, butter.
She caught me at 2 a.m. sitting on the kitchen floor dipping a stick of butter into a sugar bowl.
You eat that?
Yeah.
That's brilliant!
Yeah, that'll give me a chance to make some of those butter sugar things.
You know what? Andy, you should really come up with a name for those.
I did. They're called shame sticks. Another shame stick?
I think I've earned it.
So, in 1977, the US government released the dietary goals for Americans, which basically said eat less fat, especially saturated fat. By the early 1980s, the message was everywhere. Doctors said it, magazines said it, TV commercials said it.
Dannon low-fat yogurt, a good thing going for you every day.
Your gym teacher probably said it.
No hustle, no muscle.
Gym class in the 80s.
And then came the famous food guide pyramid. What was at the bottom of the pyramid? Bread, cereal, rice, and pasta. Wisdom of the day said the foundation of your diet should be 6 to 11 servings of carbs, because nothing says optimal human nutrition like building the food pyramid on top of a loaf of bread. Meanwhile, fat? Fat was the villain. Fat was the dietary Darth Vader. And the food industry responded exactly how you'd expect. They gave us low-fat everything. Part 2, the low-fat food explosion. If you were alive in the 80s or 90s, you remember this. Everything suddenly had the label that said low-fat. Low-fat yogurt, low-fat cookies, low-fat crackers, low-fat frozen dinners. You could walk into a grocery store and feel like a nutritional superhero. I bought the low-fat cookies. I'm basically an Olympic athlete. But there was one small problem. When you remove the fat from food, you also remove the flavor. And food companies had a very serious business problem. People generally prefer food that doesn't taste like cardboard. So they had to replace the flavor with something. And guess what they chose? Part 3, sugar replaced fat. When fat disappeared from food, sugar moved in, big time. Manufacturers started adding sugar, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, maltodextrin, refined starches, all to make low-fat food actually taste edible. So instead of eating foods with fat and protein, people were now eating foods packed with fast-digesting carbohydrates, which leads to something called blood sugar spikes. Of course, Rabbi Glickman on Seinfeld knew there was an issue.
If I'm in need of some guidance here.
Would you care for a snack of some kind? I have these snack wells, which are very popular, although I think sometimes with the so-called fat-free cookies, people may overindulge, forgetting that they may be high in calories.
All right, take a look at this. Guess which one keeps you full longer? When you eat refined carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises quickly. Your body responds by releasing insulin. Insulin's job is to move glucose out of the blood, but it also has another job. It tells your body, hey, let's store some energy. And guess the way that stores energy? Fat, which is ironic. Because remember, the entire point of the low-fat diet was to reduce your weight, specifically fat. Part 4, What happened to obesity rates? Here's where the story gets really interesting, because we can actually look at the data. Americans did reduce fat intake. Between 1970 and 2000, the percentage of calories from animal fat dropped a bit. So the theory says people should have gotten leaner, right? Instead, obesity rates exploded. In the 1960s, about 13% of Americans were obese. Today, it's over 40%. And the rise started right around the time the low-fat guidelines took over. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean fat reduction alone caused the obesity epidemic, but it does mean something important. The idea that fat makes you fat was a spectacularly bad oversimplification. Part 5, why fat isn't the villain. Here's the thing about fat. Fat does a lot of useful things in your body. Fat helps absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K. It supports hormone production, slows digestion, helps you feel full, which means when you eat meals that include healthy fats, you're often less hungry later. Compare that to ultra-processed, low-fat foods. They digest quickly, they spike blood sugar, and 2 hours later, you're standing in the kitchen asking yourself, didn't I just eat? Check this out. Satiety matters. This is one of the big lessons we're finally starting to relearn. Fat wasn't the villain. The real problem turned out to be ultra-processed foods, especially food combining refined carbs, added sugar, artificial ingredients, hyper-palatable engineering. In other words, food designed to make you eat more of it. Part 6, the real takeaway. The low-fat food era taught us something important. Nutrition advice based on simplistic villains tends to backfire. Fat wasn't the enemy, just like carbs aren't automatically evil either. What actually matters is the quality of the food. Whole foods, protein, healthy fats, fiber. Food that doesn't come with a marketing campaign attached to it. So next time you see a package screaming low fat, just remember that label might as well say, we replaced the fat with something worse. Trust the what? Exactly. All right, here's your 1% challenge for today. Just one thing. For the next 24 hours, cut out processed junk, or at least cut it way back. That means if it comes in a shiny package, if it has 15 ingredients you can't pronounce, if it proudly says low fat on the front, maybe don't trust it. Instead, eat real food, protein, healthy fats, stuff your grandparents would actually recognize as food. That's it. No perfection, no meal plan, no overthinking. Just one small shift, because getting healthier isn't about flipping your life upside down overnight. It's about stacking small wins, 1% better today than you were yesterday. And hey, if you find yourself standing in the kitchen tonight, staring at a box of low-fat cookies, you already know what to do. If you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. And I'm curious about something. Did you grow up in the low-fat era? Were you eating low-fat cookies thinking you were being healthy? Drop a comment below and tell me what you remember. And if there's a nutrition rule you've always wondered about, maybe we'll trust the what together in the next episode.